Welcome back to Educator.com's Adobe Premiere Pro CS6 in-depth course. And in this video, we are going to go over the default fixed effects. We kind of went over some of the effects in Premiere in the last video when we did the spinning newspaper and we did scale and rotation. But we're going to go a little more in-depth this time over all of the effects that are available in that panel. Let's go ahead and study the concept of keyframes. A keyframe is a frame that marks a transition. So if you have, say, a Pong game on a video and it's going from corner to corner to side, every time it hits one of those sides, that would be considered a keyframe. It's going from in one direction, and then it suddenly goes in a different direction. That's the basis of keyframing, is you telling it, okay, start from the left, go up to the top, and everything is the same all the way to the top. But when you get to the top, I want you to change direction and possibly change speed and start going a different direction. When you hit another side, there's another keyframe. You want to change direction and possibly go a different speed. And you hit another side and another side. And every time it hits one of these sides, that's the same action as what a keyframe does. And you can have as many or as few keyframes as you want. You don't even, on some of these, you don't even need keyframes. And some of them, they're not allowed. Like the black and white effect doesn't even have keyframes. It's just an effect that stays there and it works through the entire clip. So let's go in and look at the motion effect. That's the first set of effects that apply to every clip in Premiere. And I have a project here, and we have a clip here. We have, it looks like 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13, 14 clips. So if we go to the effect controls, the first one under video effects is motion. And motion isn't just moving something around, keeping it one size. It's all of these different attributes, from position to scale to rotation to anchor point to anti-flicker filter, which you can also use so your video doesn't look like it's jumping around, flickering. Let's go through each of these step by step so you can see how that applies to this video. So we have the video here, and the first thing I'm going to do, just to get it to the right size, I'm going to do scale to frame size, just to make sure that it's going to fit inside of our frame here. Now you see it didn't really change it because I had created this sequence with this video in mind. But if your video was a different size, then you would default and it would either expand it out or contract it to fit your frame. That way what you see is the entire image. So the first one here is position. So we have 640 by 360, and that means that it's right in the center. So if I drag this over and I increase the X value, wherever the center point is, the anchor point, that is going to move it over. So if it's 640 by 360, it will move this point in the image itself to this point in the entire frame. So if we bring it negative, it will go the other way, and you can pull it completely off of the screen, which you would do if you want to do a pan across. You would pull it all the way off, and then we would animate it, which I'm going to show you in just a few seconds here. And the Y value, it goes up to go down. So the higher Y value goes goes down and the lower value goes up. So you think it's just the opposite of what you would think it would be. However, this anchor point, 640 across by 360 down, you have to realize that this is 0, 0. So if we put the anchor point at 0, 0, and then we would have to bring this to 0, 0 to have it fill the entire frame from this point. So the 0, 0 point on this image is at the 0, 0 point on the frame itself. Usually it's the center of the video, but you can put this anchor point at any point, even way over here off of this video itself, off of the frame itself. You can have the anchor point like way down in the corner. If you're going to have it say sweep across, you can put the anchor point down here, and then when you rotate, it'll rotate around that anchor point, which is what happens if I use the rotate here. You see that it's rotating around the 0, 0 point up here, because that's where we put our anchor point. Your anchor point shows you how all of this other stuff works. And if we do the scale and we scale it, you see that it scales to where the anchor point is. If the anchor point was in the center, it would have scaled down to the center. But since we put it way up here, it scales up to that point. So the anchor point stays still when you do any of these other things, like scale or rotate or position or anything like that. It stays still, and we have it at 0, 0. And you can make this any value. So the next one, scale, I just showed you. You can have it from 0 to 100, and you think, well, that's as high as it goes, but it's not. You can bring up here, you can come up here, and you can scrub it to the right, and it will go all the way as high as that goes to 600%, which is a pretty big video. And then if you want to reset all of these really quickly, you can just hit this one, and it will bring everything back to what it was before. Do you notice that scale also has this checkbox, uniform scale? So if you uncheck this one, you'll have two scales here. You have the height and the width, that you can alter them independently if you want to, or if you need to. You might need to alter them independently. If you check it back, it will go back to, if you have this on 50% and you check it, you'll notice that they both go to 50%. Even though it doesn't say it there, that one changed it to 50.4% when you check this box. So whatever your height is, when you check the box, will go to your width. And you can see it easily in the video. It's not distorted like it is here. It's a very good way to change your video quickly. If you know that your height is correct, then you can make it uniform quickly with this checkbox. The rotation, we've seen that before. You can use this thing here, which is really difficult to control. It goes crazy. It goes nuts when you try to control it. And I just use this one here. I just put the cursor over it, and you'll see that it turns a little hand with the arrows on it. And you can move it back and forth however you want to do it. I'm not sure what the limit is here. It looks like it goes pretty far. But you can change. I believe the limit used to be you could do like 2 or 3, maybe 4 rotations, and it would stomp. But it looks like they took off the limitation in CS6, which is nice if you have to do a lot of rotating. All of these are keyframeable also, as you see the little stopwatch here. And I'm going to show you that in just a moment. The anchor point we showed you, you can put it anywhere in the video itself. If you change these, it won't change the video, but it might change where it's located because the position isn't changing when you change these ones. So you could change this to 0, 0, and because you didn't change the position, it moved the anchor point to where the position is, which is 640 by 360 for this size video. Other video will have a different position when you first put the video in, because it will center on the video. So it's 640 by 480, it'll go to 320 by 240. It will be the position that you start with here. And if it's 1920 by 1080, it's 960 by 540. That would be the position that it starts at, the default position, which would be the center of the video, whatever the frame size is here. The anti-flicker filter, you can bump that up, make it so it doesn't flicker like if you're doing animation up here. It's kind of like the anti-alias that I showed you before on the iris. It just makes the video a little bit cleaner if it needs to be. I don't think I've ever used it though. That's just me. I've never used it. But we went through and I talked about how all of these are keyframeable, which means they can change over time. Let me show changing some of these. We have the position, and if you want the position to be keyframeable, you notice that there's no disclosure triangle next to position. That means by default it's not keyframeable until you click this animation. And then you have the disclosure triangle, which will give you the velocity here, and it'll let you make keyframes on the video. And it's the same with the anchor point. You can change the anchor point to have it move to another location in the video. You can animate that also by clicking this, and that will give you a keyframeable anchor point. And the velocity, this velocity is before and this is after. So if I come back to the beginning here and I make the anchor point, say 0, 0, and then I come over here and I make the anchor point over here 640 by 360, and then I make it over here, I make it 1280 by 720. Now watch what happens when I change these values. So you're making it a smoother transition and then a smoother transition here. So when you come in, you will see that it's a slower, and then it will suddenly come down to the other location. It'll slowly and then suddenly come down. Now these keyframes here, if you right click on one and you come down to temporal interpolation, this is time interpolation. So you can alter the ramp up or the ramp down with the linear, which is the sharpest, that's the default. The Bezier will make kind of a smooth curve. An auto Bezier will look at it and see, Premiere will try to figure out the best way to have smooth motion. Continuous, that will go through the entire set of keyframes and figure out a long continuous Bezier. And hold will just hold on the video right there. Ease in and ease out. Ease in will ease in to the transition, but then it will keep whatever transition it had here. Ease out will keep whatever you have up here and then ease it out slowly on a Bezier curve. And then the spatial is also the same for the motion that's on the screen that you see. And you can see that this is an auto Bezier, and if we change this to auto Bezier, you'll see that it made it a much smoother curve. And you'll see that the icon changed here. The linear is like a point, and the Bezier is more of a circle. It's more of a round. So if we bring this to, say, Bezier, you will see that it's altered it just to make it look different. It's a different kind of keyframe. And you now have this little handle here that you can use. If I can grab it there, and I can change the kind of curve that it is by moving this around. If you've used the pen tool in Photoshop, it's the same type of curves that you can do with these little handles down here. You can modify it to where it'll alter the waveform, so you can get very precise in how you want the transitions between these keyframes to happen. And sometimes you need to do that because you don't want it just suddenly stopping and then going in a different direction. It could be very jarring watching it. Let me go up, and I'm not going to do the anchor point here, but I will do the position. Let me clear off all of these keyframes. We'll just go to the next, clear it off, go to the next and clear it off. We'll get rid of the keyframes there. And well, let's go to the other fixed effects. The next one is opacity. I believe I have a slide here. Yeah, the other fixed effects. So let's go to opacity. And this is just how it sounds. It's how much you can see through the video. And this one, you can set it at a constant rate, which is what you have here, or you can do keyframes. You can do the Bezier curves, the linear. It just depends on how you want it to look. Now you notice that this one will not go past 100 because it's not possible to have more than 100% opacity. It's either going to block everything or it's not. So the 100% is the maximum on the opacity. And again, down here, there's a blend mode just like in Photoshop, and it has the very same blend modes that are in Photoshop. And it's not going to help me here because I only have the one video track. There's nothing underneath it. But if I have something underneath it, I can, like if I take this one and I pull it up and I change the blend mode on this one to, say, screen, you'll see that it lightens up the video quite a bit. If I change it to multiply, it'll make it much darker. And they work just the same as in Photoshop, except this one you're using video instead of still images. You're using a video here. And this is one of the spots that you might want to have the ability to do this, because if you bring this up here and you choose multiply on that, and then you can change the opacity here, and you can kind of darken up the video here just so it's not so bright. And on the inside, as you can see, I used this screen. I lightened up the video, made it much lighter. So if I turn off that track, you'll see that I lightened it up quite a bit. There's the before and there's the after. Just using a blend mode with this of screen, it lightens it up right away. And if you've used Photoshop, you know what all of these are. I would suggest just going through and experimenting with a lot of these just to see, if you've never used Photoshop, just to see what happens when you use some of them. Some of them get some really bizarre looks to them, and others, like because the videos are the same, the hue doesn't really do anything to it. You can see it doesn't really change it because it's the exact same video. But later on when we do the music video, you'll see I used a lot of blend modes to mix in some color mats to overlay the video, and we'll go over some of those in the later video when I talk about the projects that I included with the all of this video. Now, we're going to go over adding some video effects. In here, I'm not really going to go over the time remapping because I have it later on. But I am going to go over adding effects to video so we can see how we can use some of the common effects and how we can alter our video so it's exactly how we want it. Now let me get rid of these two here, and we want to reset these ones. And let's clear out all the keyframes here. And now let's go to the effects panel, to the video effects, and you see there's quite a few video effects that we can use here. And I talked about the black and white, and I believe that's under, I'm not sure where it is, so I'm going to come up here into this box and type BLACK, and we have under image control, we have black and white. So let me drag and drop that right onto the clip itself, and you notice that the color was gone from the video right away. If we go to the effects control, you'll see there's black and white, but there's no way to keyframe it. It's just an effect that's going to be on there, and if you want to have it not be black and white, you'll have to put another video either above it or below it and use the opacity to change it. You can see there's a yellow here. I turn it on, it's grayscale. That's just one of the effects. Let's go ahead, we click on here and hit delete. It'll get rid of the effect. So if you're going around and you're working with it and it's not coming out right, just select it, delete it, and start over. I've found many times that if I just start over, instead of trying to tweak like 3 or 4 different effects to get it to work, I'll just start over, and usually I can get the look that I want. Well, let's go ahead and look at some other ones. If you notice that I can only see these two because I have black up here. So let me hit this little X, and that will let me see all of the effects again. Now let's go to blur and Gaussian blur. If you've ever used Photoshop, you've probably used Gaussian blur. And we're going to take that and drop it onto the video. Now let's go over to the effects controls, and here we have Gaussian blur. Our blurriness right now is 0, so we have plenty of sharpness here. It's not blurring it at all. And then we have blur dimensions, and then we have this thing called repeat edge pixels. And let me show you how that works. So we're going to change the blurriness, and we're going to have it just a constant blurry all the way across, no keyframing at all. It's all completely blurry, and if you look at the edges, you'll see there's a black kind of a shady border around the edge of it. And what that is, that's what this fixes. Keep an eye on especially this edge here, and we got an edge here that's really easy to see. let me check this box, and you'll see what it does. It fixes the edges around the outside, because if you don't have this on, it's looking not only here but also outside for the blurriness. And if you repeat the edge pixels, it won't look outside of this image, this video image right here. It'll stay inside of this image, and it will make a little bit better blur. Now, you also have here, you can have it horizontal and vertical, horizontal or vertical. Now let's change it to vertical, and you can see, or horizontal. Then you can see that the blurring is happening horizontally on here, and vertically it's happening up and down vertically. It's just whatever effect you need. I mean, you might want to put it vertical and then have it drop down from the top, drop it straight down, and that will give it a look of blurriness. And then you can keyframe how much it's going to blur here and have it ramp down so when it hits the bottom, it's not blurry at the bottom. And in fact, let's do that. Let's create a video, and we will do a keyframe for the position. And let me go forward just a little bit, and we'll have it start here. We'll put the keyframe there, and we'll have it start way at the top. And we'll put the blurriness vertical, and we have it at the maximum right now. So we need a keyframe there because we're starting at a maximum blurriness, and we want to change that when we get to the bottom. So let's have it come down to about there. We'll put another keyframe there, and we'll bring this down. And we want to bring it just a little bit more than what we have on the frame, because we're going to bring it back up. And we'll put a keyframe here because we're going to go from 50 blurry to nothing in the little jump up that we're going to have between there and here. So let's bring this back to 360. And we'll bring this back to 0. So let's watch what happens when our car falls down. Wow, that is, I put that way too far over. Let me marquee these ones and drag those because that is going to be a very short fall right there. A very long fall, I should say. Yeah, that's going to be a very, very short fall. Let me, that's going to take a long time to fall. Let me grab them again, and we'll bring it closer. And then we'll grab just these two, and we'll bring those closer. And then we'll grab both of these, and we'll drag those over so it happens much faster. And let's go over here and remove that keyframe. And so it looks like it picks it up and then drops it down. Yeah, those are really, really close to each other. Let me grab all of these and move it pretty close to the beginning. And then, as you can see, it takes a little bit of finessing to get these correct. And you want to make sure that you get them correct, because if it looks bizarre, well, it kind of just fell down there real quick. But if it looks bizarre, then if it looks bizarre to you, it looks bizarre to other people. But you can see what I'm talking about in keyframing the effect so that we get our blurriness, basically it falls down and then it goes from maximum blurry to nothing, no blurry at all. Any of these effects, and you can go through, and we're going to go over some of the color corrections later, and there's distort and all these different effects. We can animate most of them. Not all of them, like black and white we can't animate, but most of them we can animate them. So if we needed to do something in the middle of the effect, we can have it do it. But a lot of these effects are kind of cheesy, and you don't want to use some of them. But there's others that people use all the time, like the black and white they use all the time. The color correction they use all the time. On generate, I've seen the lens flare and the lightning a lot. Under video, I've seen the time code used, and I'll show you how to use that later. A lot of these other ones, the transform, I've used the crop before. The echo I've used before. The mosaic, when we get to masking out logos and faces, we'll be using the mosaic along with the Gaussian blur, and we'll also use the garbage matte, the 8-point or the 4-point or the 16-point garbage matte. We'll also use that when we do the masking out of faces and logos. It's one of those, you use it quite a bit, especially on the when you're doing alpha screen, green screen, the chroma key. We usually use the ultra key, which is very easy to use, and I'll show you how to use the track matte also, the track matte key, because I use that in the music video that is one of the projects with this. It's one of those things that you use it if you need it, and if you don't, then you don't even have to worry about it. So the next thing I want to go over, we went over the keyframing the effects. Let's go over the effect presets, and that all of those are here on the presets. And let's choose a piece of video, and here's a good piece of video. We're going to make it smaller, and let's go in and do some beveled edges thick. That way it's easy for you to see them. And you can see the preset here. It makes beveled edges like it's looking through like a diamond or something. Under the effect controls, just like the other effects, you can also modify these. So you can change the thickness if you want. You can make it smaller, or if you want to, you can make it pretty much the entire thing is beveled. Light angle, etc., etc. All of these effects, they went through and figured out what you need for the effect, and Adobe put them all in there automatically. There's a twirls there, twirl in and twirl out, which I did by hand with the newspaper, basically because I forgot that the twirls are in here. But they have other things like picture in picture. So if I bring this video up and over this one, we'll zoom in and bring it over the top of this one. And we want it in the, say, upper right 25%. And then we want it scaled down from full size. That way we don't have to change the size of this. We can bring this over and drop it, and you will see that it brings it, it'll scale it down and put it in the upper right. It didn't exactly do it 25%, but we can go in and change the scale here to whatever size we want, and then we can change the position and put it so we have basically a picture-in-picture between this one and this one, with the one on the top with the effect on it is the one that's going to be the picture-in-picture. And then we'll go back and put this back to 100%, and it'll be a little bit easier to see the picture-in-picture, especially if we put, say, a bevel on it. That way there's a bevel over that one. And you can use this for, I've seen it on commercials, and I haven't really seen it anywhere else, unless it's, say, a newscast and they want to have a thing over the shoulder. You can use this one if you're filming it, not if you're doing it live. They usually have a dedicated machine to do it live. But if you're doing it in on a video, it's easy to do here, using the beveled edges and using the picture-in-picture. The presets, I suggest you go through and look at them. They come with every version of Premiere. It's just what they use. It's what they give you when you get Premiere. And they figured out all of the things for you, so you don't have to sit there and bang your head against the wall trying to figure out some of this stuff. It's just something that makes your job a little bit easier. Again, the most used effects, I would have to say for video effects, it would be the garbage mat, the keying, the blurring, especially if you're doing what we're going to do next, is masking out logos, etc. And the time code, I've seen a lot of time code. It's something that lets you show the time code on the screen, so you know what the time code is on the video. The audio effects, usually the reverb, the low pass and the high pass. The low pass lets low frequencies pass, and the high pass lets high frequencies pass. Then the delay and the equalization, and I don't really do the dehummer or the de-esser or any of these ones. When we get to fixing the audio, I'll show you how to do a lot of that in Audition to remove the noise. The notch is used a lot. I don't really use the mute. Volume, I usually do it down here where we have audio gain. It will let you adjust the gain here. Actually, let me go over that real quick, because that is an effect, but it just happens on that one clip. And you have your set gain to, adjust gain by, normalize max peak to, normalize all peaks to. We don't have any audio on this one, but I believe we do here. So let me go up to audio gain. Now, set gain to, and you can see right now, this would bring the max peak to 0 dB by setting the gain to 10.8. And you adjust the gain. This is basically adding volume to your video, to your audio. Normalize max peak to 0. It'll go through, and on all of these peaks here, let me expand this out a little, and we'll go back in. the normalized max peak to, it'll go through and figure out what the max peak is, whatever the highest peak is, and it will put that at 0 dB, which is the average amount of audio. So wherever the peak amplitude is negative 10.9 dB, which is probably this one here, that's probably not that one. It looks like this one is the highest on screen right now. It'll go through and put that one at 0, and then it will scale up just enough for these to go up by the same amount. So if I do normalize max peak to 0, watch what happens with the video. Oh, it doesn't show it there. It used to show it, I believe, but you can see that it would scale up, and now the max peak is now going to 0, which is this one here, it looks like. The max peak, yeah, that is the 0 max peak right there. It doesn't look like there's anything else higher than that, but it's scaled up everything else. Well, let me undo that one. Let's go back in. Now if you do normalize all peaks to 0 dB, what that will do is it will take all of the peaks and basically pull it out to 0 dB on all of them. And now all of the peaks go to 0. So all of these high points will go up to 0, which will make your audio sound very very loud. Let's see.
My name is Pixie Jenny. I'm 38 years old and I'm 5'1". I weigh.
Yeah, it gives a very odd sound to it. That's something that's an effect that you can put on the entire clip. Usually if I need to adjust the gain or the volume, I'll do it that way instead of using the effect up here for equalization or volume here. It's just a much quicker way, and you know that you're not going to have distorted video at the end. So hopefully I see you back here on the Adobe Premiere Pro CS6 in-depth course here on Educator.com.